A trapper working the drainage ditches along a Pennsylvania river in the summer of 2023 pulled something out of the water that his permit did not cover. 4 feet long. Prehistoric profile. The kind of stillness that belongs 1,200 miles south of where he was standing. He made a call, and the number he dialed was animal control, because there is no other number in Pennsylvania for this. The record was logged. The animal was named Chomper, and it was not the first alligator in that river that summer, and it was not the last. On August 4, 2024, a kayaker near the Pennsylvania shoreline of Lake Erie spotted something in the water that he initially took for a log. It was not a log. It was an American alligator, estimated at 4 to 6 feet, in water that would drop below freezing inside of 3 months. He reported it to Erie County authorities, who passed it to the State Fish and Game Office. Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission spokesman Mike Parker confirmed that officials were aware of the report. The agency did not have anyone actively searching for it. The animal was entered in the database, and the lake kept doing what Lake Erie does in late summer, getting ready for cold. That report did not arrive in a vacuum. It arrived alongside a file that has been accumulating entries for years, from river mouths and park lagoons and storm drains and wastewater screens across a swath of the country that no field guide, no agency document, and no scientific model would have predicted as wild alligator territory. Each entry reads like an error. Together, they read like something else. The question the file keeps opening is this: how far outside the mapped boundary can an alligator actually survive? And is what we are seeing a series of isolated accidents, or the early signature of something moving? The American alligator's native range runs across the southeastern United States, from the upper coast of North Carolina in the east to Lake Worth in central Texas in the west. That is the official map. It has not changed meaningfully in the scientific literature for generations, and the reason it holds where it holds is not political. It is biological. Alligators are ectotherms. They manufacture no body heat of their own. Air temperature, water temperature, solar exposure. These are not preferences, they are requirements. Below roughly 40 degrees Fahrenheit, an alligator cannot move with any real purpose. Below about 70, it cannot properly digest food sitting in its own stomach. A winter that runs too long or drops too hard does not merely inconvenience the animal. It shuts the animal down by degrees, each cold day drawing down a reserve that spring may not fully replenish. North Carolina is where the map draws the line. The North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission designates the state as the northern extent of the American alligator's natural range. The animals grow sparser as you move up the coast, clustering in the warmest, most sheltered river valleys and estuaries the landscape offers. Cold weather days limit their growing season, their capacity to reproduce, and ultimately, their ability to survive at this margin at all. Beyond a certain threshold, the math simply does not work. The animal cannot eat enough in a short, warm season to absorb the losses of a long, cold one. That is the wall. It is not legend. It is physiology drawn on a map, and for a long time, it felt as solid as geography. And then the file starts. In February of 2023, City Park staff in Brooklyn found a 4-foot alligator in Prospect Park Lake. The animal was lethargic, possibly cold-shocked. It was transferred to the Bronx Zoo, which examined it and found that despite measuring nearly 5 feet, it weighed only 15 pounds. Roughly half the expected weight for an animal that size. Severe malnourishment. An ingested bathtub stopper. The Bronx Zoo treated it for months. On April 16th of that year, the animal died. That same summer, a 4-foot alligator was spotted multiple times along the Kiski River in Armstrong County, Pennsylvania. Kayakers eventually captured it. Local police reported that there may have been 2 or more alligators in that waterway simultaneously. The Kiski River is not in alligator country. It has never been in alligator country. In the fall of 2023, a 4-foot alligator was found traveling through the waterways of Piscataway, New Jersey, roughly 2 miles from where it had first been spotted in a local park. New Jersey has no mapped population of wild alligators. In September of 2025, a houseboat resident at the Washington Channel Marina near the wharf in Washington, D.C., caught a small alligator with a fishing net. Animal control arrived. The animal was transferred to a sanctuary in Pennsylvania. The U.S. Geological Survey recorded it as the only entry in their database for an alligator in the District of Columbia. The USG's non-indigenous aquatic species database carries American alligator observations from New York State, spanning from 1929 through 2025. Nearly a century of entries. The file is not new, it just keeps getting longer. Before that file means anything, it has to be understood against what the agencies responsible for these animals actually know. The North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission does not treat the northern boundary as a guess. The state sits at the very margin of where the species can survive at all, and margins are where ecological change shows up earliest. Wildlife professionals there monitor alligator populations actively, precisely because an edge population is a fragile one, more sensitive to cold, more vulnerable to losing ground in a bad winter, less capable of absorbing stress that a Florida population would shrug off. The 11 southeastern states where American alligators live launched a coordinated outreach program called GatorWise to manage conflicts between people and alligators. A program that only makes sense if the agencies running it understand the species well enough to track it, study it, and communicate about it to the public. What the monitoring consistently shows is that North Carolina's alligators are already living with their back against something. They grow more slowly than animals in Louisiana or the Florida Everglades. They breed less often. Cold weather days clip the growing season, and a clipped season means an animal entering winter with less margin than it needed. The range does not end at North Carolina because no one checked further north. It ends there because the biology gives out. So when an animal turns up in Brooklyn or the Washington Channel, it is not crossing a line that was drawn without looking. It is crossing a line that was drawn by looking very carefully, which makes the crossings genuinely strange. So the question becomes physiological. How does an animal built for the subtropical southeast survive a northern winter at all? And the answer, when you look closely at it, is one of the stranger things in North American wildlife biology. An alligator does not freeze, it brumates. Brumation is the reptile's equivalent of hibernation, but it is not a clean analogy. The animal does not simply sleep. Its metabolism drops to something close to nothing. Heart rate in a deeply cold alligator can fall to approximately 3 beats per minute. The animal stops eating for months at a stretch, idling at the threshold of what still qualifies as life. The cold does not kill it, not immediately, not if the animal has chosen its position well. As the water above a brumating alligator begins to ice over, the animal senses the change. It tips itself at an angle in the water, rises slowly toward the surface, and pushes the very tip of its snout through the forming ice sheet. Then it stops. The ice closes around the nostrils. The rest of the animal hangs suspended in the dark water below, motionless, held there for hours or days at a time, breathing through a hole the size of a nostril. Park workers in North Carolina gave a name to the footage that circulates every winter when this happens: gator sickles. Visitors film what appears to be a dead reptile trapped in a frozen pond, its snout pointing skyward through the white surface like a scaly periscope. The explanation that follows, that the animal is not dead, that it is doing exactly what it is built to do, is one that wildlife communicators have had to deliver repeatedly, because the image reads as catastrophe when it is actually mechanism. The behavior has been documented in the scientific record. Researchers observed an alligator maintaining a breathing position in an iced-over pond in South Carolina in the early 1980s, holding the posture for days while the surrounding water stayed solid. There is no theatrics in it. The animal is simply using a physiological option that its biology has carried forward across millions of years of winter. This is also why alligators at the cold edge of their range run smaller than their southern counterparts. A shorter feeding season produces a slower-growing animal, and a smaller animal enters winter with less stored energy. The cold does not only threaten to kill directly, it taxes every year, compounding the margin an animal has to work with across its entire life. Here is what brumation does not do. It does not make the animal immune. The Prospect Park alligator in Brooklyn spent months under veterinary care at the Bronx Zoo. It had survived the water. It had not survived what the cold winter and whatever preceded it had done to the animal's body. Severe weight loss, anemia, active infections, a stomach ulcer from a bathtub stopper it had swallowed somewhere in its life before the park. The Bronx Zoo announced its death on April 21, 2023. 5 feet long, 15 pounds. Brumation buys time. It does not grant immunity. An animal that cannot feed, cannot fight infection, and cannot build reserves across a long freeze exits the cold in deficit. Whether it survives what follows depends on how much margin it had going in, and how quickly warm weather and food return. The wrong side of either calculation is lethal. So the survival trick is real, and the survival trick has a ceiling. And what sits directly on top of that ceiling is the obvious question: what is changing the margin? The answer that first presents itself is elegant, and it has real science under it. The northern boundary of the alligator's range is set by cold, specifically by the number of days in a year cold enough to threaten the animal's survival, and by whether the warm season that follows is long enough for the animal to recover, grow, and reproduce. If that calculation is fixed, the boundary is fixed. But if the cold season shortens, if the number of lethal winter days at a given latitude begins to decrease, then the survival margin widens, and the boundary becomes a moving line. Climate researchers, including work published from 2018 onward, have modeled exactly this. Projections built on warming scenarios suggest that suitable alligator habitat could shift northward as winters moderate. The projection is not a clean march, not a front sweeping evenly north like a tide. It is something stranger, a patchy network of isolated populations appearing further north, small footholds in newly survivable habitat, separated by gaps the species could not bridge all at once. Stepping stones across a landscape of marginal winters, visible on maps as scattered dots rather than a moving front. Those habitat patches appear, on modeled maps, precisely in the kinds of thermally buffered corridors, slow urban rivers, retention ponds, discharge-warmed waterways, where the northern sightings keep turning up. The American alligator's native range already reaches from the Carolina coast to central Texas. At the northern edge, in North Carolina, alligators demonstrate how they respond to margin conditions. They slow down, grow smaller, reproduce less. They are already adapted to running close to the limit. A warming climate does not need to transform these animals. It only needs to move the line at which that adaptation fails. A few fewer killing cold days per winter. A few more weeks of warm water. But the climate story does not stay simple the moment you look at the whole range, instead of just the northern edge. The same warming that shortens northern winters also intensifies what happens in the south. Drought deepens. Saltwater intrusion pushes further inland with rising coastal water levels. The warm, shallow, freshwater wetlands that define the core of the alligator's range, from the Florida Everglades across the coastal southeast, are the specific habitat type most vulnerable to these forces. The picture that emerges is not a species migrating toward a better world. It is a species being squeezed, possibly leaking northward from a foundation that is itself being compromised. Whether any individual northern animal represents a genuine range expansion or a displacement from degraded southern habitat, or something in between, the map alone cannot say. A species expanding into new territory is one story. A species being pushed out of old territory is a different one. Both can produce the same dot on the same map. Set the warming explanation aside for a moment. Every single northern alligator in that file has a second possible origin, and the U.S. Geological Survey has been clear about it. The U.S.'s non-indigenous aquatic species database attributes most non-indigenous American alligator occurrences not to natural dispersal, but to escaped or deliberately released pets. The exotic pet trade has been moving baby alligators across state lines for generations. A hatchling is small, manageable, and not difficult to obtain. The animal that follows is a 10-foot apex predator. The predictable sequence, novelty, growth, regret, release, plays out repeatedly, and the records from Pennsylvania alone illustrate the scale. In Armstrong County, after the Kiski River capture of Chomper, a Lindora man was cited by the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission after his 2-foot pet alligator escaped into that same river while being transported. Within weeks, humane agents seized 10 alligators from a single Kiski Township home after a report of a 5 to 6-foot animal found on a resident's porch. 10 alligators, 1 address, 1 township in western Pennsylvania. Elsewhere in the state, a baby alligator, just over a foot long, pulled from pre-treatment screens at a wastewater treatment plant in Lehigh County in June of 2023. A malnourished pet named Fluffy, found in a creek in Berks County, after its owner said it escaped during flash flooding. An 8-foot, 127-pound alligator named Big Mac, removed from a North Philadelphia row home where the family said it had lived since 2011. The Philadelphia animal rescue organization Act Philly reported rescuing its 5th alligator within a span of a few months in 2023, after an owner surrendered one it had purchased on Craigslist in 2016. These are not rare exceptions. They are a documented, recurring pattern across a state with no wild alligator population whatsoever. Here is what the file resolves to. The USGS is the federal agency that tracks this. Its position is not equivocal. Most non-indigenous American alligator occurrences in the northern states are attributed to released or escaped pets. Not some, most. The decade-long run of sightings in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and the District of Columbia fits that pattern exactly. Animals carried there. Animals that outgrew a tank or a yard, or an owner's tolerance. Animals released into the nearest water when the situation became untenable. The 10 animals seized from one address in Kiski Township are not climate data. They are the pet trade documented in a single afternoon. But probable pathway is not proven pathway. Provenance testing is rarely performed in routine wildlife response cases. Without tracking from origin to sighting, each record stays open. And climate modeling published since 2018 does show that the thermally buffered waterways where these animals keep appearing, slow urban rivers, discharge-warmed retention ponds, match projected habitat patches under warming scenarios. The two explanations are not mutually exclusive. Released pets fill the niches that warming creates, which brings it back to the Pennsylvania drainage ditch, to the animal named Chomper, to the trapper who made a call and got animal control, because there is no other number for this in Pennsylvania. He had the animal. He had the number. He did not have the origin. The agency logged it. The record closed. And somewhere in the same river system, another animal was holding still in the current. And no field test, no database entry, and no agency protocol currently in use could say whether it swam there or was driven. If this case stays with you, subscribe. There is more in this file worth following.